I have a 12-year-old son with autism, and I also have a 20-year-old nephew with autism. My son was diagnosed at the age of 5, and we knew a long time before then that he probably had autism because it had been confirmed by his speech and language therapist. But it wasn't until he was about 5 that the paediatrician actually wrote down in black and white that he had autism. And that again is something that we had to push for to a degree, because you do find that some of the professionals don't like to actually diagnose your child with anything whilst they're particularly young. Although I do know nowadays that children are being diagnosed at the age of 2 onwards, which is a good thing because then they get the early years intervention. And I think maybe in years gone past, children who have not had a diagnosis until the age of 5, people don't know exactly how to deal with them with regards to education and other things, because they don't exactly know what it is that they have. They don't have that hard fact, that hard diagnosis. As I said before, our son was diagnosed at 5, but we sort of knew from the age of 12 months really, because he didn't speak and he wasn't picking words up. He hit all his milestones as a regular child should do. So, you know, his bottles, you know, coming off those, weaning, crawling, sitting up, smiling, all those sorts of things, walking, potty training. He hit all of those milestones the same as any other child, but it was just the absence of speech really that was the only thing that was different about him. That and the fact that he didn't necessarily acknowledge you when you spoke to him. So if he was playing with something and you spoke to him, there was no response, there was no comeback from that. And when he was 2.5, I took him to, I think it was a 2.5 year check, something like that, with a health visitor. And they said, oh, give it another 6 months and see how he goes. Some children are very slow at speech. But I knew at that point that it wasn't that there was something different about him. And I did put my foot down and ensure that the health visitor forwarded us on to somebody else. And the next stage for us was that he went to get a hearing test to see if he was deaf. There could have been something wrong with his ears, and that's why he wasn't acknowledging people or able to speak. After the hearing test, when everything came back clear, he was okay on that, then we were sent along to a speech and language therapist who did advise us at one of the first sessions that he could possibly be autistic. So from that point onwards, it was sort of always in the air. And because my nephew, my husband's sister's son, already had autism, it was something that maybe we'd thought could possibly have been there anyway. So it wasn't a real shock to us. And I think that when you sort of you do that and you find out about it, it does take quite a while to get used to the fact that your child could have autism, because it's a different journey that you begin to take, and it's something that you hadn't planned in your child's life, in your life, and it's something that really does alter a lot of the things in your general everyday life, and not just for you and your partner, but also for your children as well, and of course for the child that has the autism.
Tyler, she's, from the moment she gets up to the moment she goes to bed, she never stops. She's on the go all the time, whether it's happy, sad, frustrated, cheeky.
Fiona's total opposite to that. She'll take herself off and go in the bedroom and do her own thing. She's really quiet sometimes. I'm having to think for her all the time and be one step ahead and make sure she don't do this, make sure she don't do that. You know what I mean?
We have to make sure everything's in. We have to lock the door when she comes in, hide the keys, because if she finds the keys she can get out, and then she runs. We have to put things like plastic perspex over the television, because the footballs get thrown at the telly. And then it's things like the dog. She won't leave the dog alone. How the dog ain't had a leg yet, I don't know. Because she just challenges him all the time. She just never stops. And even when she's playing and she's sat quiet, you still have to be part of that game, but you can't play as that game. You just have to be a still object that she uses, like a bridge or just something that she's got to be touching for just to play. But you're not allowed to interact and zoom around with a car.
Quite has to play on her own.
Yeah.
But as long as you're in the room with her.
Yeah, got to be there, and you've got to be sat in one place doing whatever she's told you.
Yeah.
And that's it. You don't talk, you don't touch her, you don't. You're still.
My main way of finding out that Oliver had got autism was how he would cope in the future, not necessarily now, because me and Louise were around, we're there for him every minute of the day. We don't have a lot of family to help, so it's very straining, but we would rather it be like that. We want to be involved with everything he does. But my biggest worry was, and is still now, is when schooling is finished, what he will become when he leaves school. It probably made us angry when Oliver was diagnosed with anything, that why us? That's the first reaction I got. Why has this happened? Why us? It's our only child. We only wanted one child, and we had a child late. And my wife has always worked with children with learning disabilities and adults, so she finished work to start a family, and all of a sudden she was working. Her own life now was what she was doing at work.
I have a son who's 20. I noticed at 14 months old that he wasn't developing as he should. He's crawling, sitting up, speech, and that's when I took him to the doctors. From there, he was sent to the Child Developmental Centre at City Hospital and was there for 13 years.
When we first got the diagnosis, because of all the problems Matthew had had, I felt relieved. I know that sounds really cruel, but to actually know that my son wasn't just this awful tear-away child and there was something actually wrong, I felt relieved, because then we could go out and get the help that we needed, and he wouldn't just be labelled a naughty kid. So that's how I felt.
Well, I think it was slightly different, or maybe similar. I'm not sure. But because we actually sought the diagnosis of ASD on reading literature and monitoring his behaviour, then yes, it was a relief, because it was a relief that they were actually listening, because as a parent I felt it was important to get the additional label so that there was a full understanding of his condition rather than a partial understanding.
When Sean was first diagnosed, it was a while ago. He was between 2 and 3 years old. Same day I found out I was pregnant again. I sort of knew it was coming, but I was still unsure. I didn't know what was going to happen, and it was also diagnosed over in the States, so it was a hell of a lot different to here. It was within a few days of being assessed.
Mine was a relief, because I argued with the health visitor for about a year and kept saying there's something wrong with him, there's something, that sounds horrible, don't it? There's something there with him, and I thought autism straight away, and to get that diagnosis was a relief. But they don't say, oh, go and see these people, or go and see that person for help and support. They just leave you hanging, and it's a horrible feeling, because you feel, it sounds strange, because most of your family accept it, but some don't, and you feel isolated from everybody when you just want somewhere to go. But there wasn't at the time.
And that was the difference. In the States it was all there, but here it started, didn't it?
No, but Ryan was 2. He was 2, and Keaton was about 1.5, 2, same age. when
It's
he was
all around
two.
the same age
Yeah.
when most of them are diagnosed, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that as time goes by and learning about autism, I'm quite confident in knowing how to manage Stevie and what things will help him. However, you have to take into consideration that, like any regular child, these children are growing, they're going through adolescence, and they're learning and changing all the time. So even though I feel that I know my son, he still throws me curved balls now and again, and things that I think would have affected him, he sails through. My ultimate aim and my belief is that Asperger's and probably some autism can never be cured, but it can be learnt to manage, or you can learn to manage it. And hopefully, if Stevie can do that, it will hold him in good stead for the future. There is a lot of support out there, and because of that support, I think I've become more confident in dealing with the professionals involved in Stevie's case. When I feel that something is being done that I don't like or that I don't feel is right for Stevie, I am able to now say, hold on a minute, tell me why you're doing that, and if I still feel it's wrong, then I will say it's wrong. And if I feel that Stevie needs more support, then I will ask for that support. You don't always get it, but if you do it in the right way, they do tend to try and help as much as they can.
With regards to support, once we'd found out that our son had autism, there was really nothing at all out there, or nothing that was made obvious to me. The doctor handed us a brown envelope with a few very heavily photocopied, fading information leaflets in there, and that was it. Basically, you were sort of sent on your way, and you were told that your child would be seen again in 6 months by the paediatrician just to see how they were going on. And even the speech and language therapy sessions that our son attended, they weren't therapy. It was really the speech and language therapist speaking to me to see how I could work with my son. And I think that this is a bit of a misconception with speech and language therapy. Parents are so grateful when they get it because they think this is it now, our child's going to get help with speech. But the child doesn't really. It's just really advice. So they are speech and language advisors more than anything else. And we really left the social side of our son to school, really. And he was in a mainstream school at that time. And there wasn't really any groups or clubs or any particular place that we felt that we could go to get information. Not that we were really wanting to at that point, because I have quite a heavy research background, so for me, I was able to look it all up on the internet, research it in a big way, watch lots and lots of different information DVDs, things like that, so that I knew more and more about it. And I think that his social interaction with other children, as it was at that time, came from attending his mainstream nursery and then moving on into the infants and the juniors. And the friends that he had there, he had a couple of good friends, and I became friends with their parents, and we sort of went on holidays together and things like that. So he sort of had a social aspect to his life, although he wasn't really that interested in the social aspect to any high degree. He would seek out from his friends the types of things that he wanted to do, and then once he'd done them, he was off doing his own thing again on his own. And as a parent, you feel that you want your child to have that social interaction with other children, to play with friends and do that type of thing. But you have to bear in mind that it's not necessarily what your child wants, and it's not necessarily what your child needs. It's something that you as a parent feels that your child is missing out on. And I think that once you can get your head around that, it helps you with your child, with their social aspects of their own lives.
Some of my family members have been fairly supportive. One or two have actually told me that there's nothing wrong with him and I should knock it out of him. Another one has told me that I've ruined his life, and if there is anything wrong with him, he should be locked away, which I find very upsetting, but I try and think, well, they're entitled to their opinion, so I just let them get on with it.
I feel that my family, or some of my family, didn't accept that my son had got disabilities. And I still feel to this day that some of them don't understand his condition.
Some members of the family accept that they've got autism, but they don't actually know what it is, and they do try the best. But then other members of the family, they tend to blame me, saying it's my fault that they've got autism, and it's how I've made them and how I've treated them that they've got it, and that.
There's not really been any really adverse reactions to the fact that our son has autism. He has older siblings, all his siblings are older than him, and they just really see him for the person that he is rather than the person with autism. I mean, some of the things that he's done over time has made them laugh, you know, but they're not really laughing at him, they tend to laugh with him more than anything else. Some of the quirky things that he does. With regards to extended family, those that do interact with him, you know, extended families, we don't see them very often, but those that do, they just treat my son as a regular child. You know, they don't even talk or acknowledge the autism in any way, shape or form, really.
My daughter, she's got very serious sensory issues. She doesn't like the sound of her sister's voice, certain sounds that are made in the house, and she constantly wears her headphones. She likes to sit in a room and just keep her own company, as does her older brother. They don't mix much with the younger two. They like to keep themselves to themselves. The older one's very repetitive. He constantly repeats his son every day. But again, they both prefer their own company and will sit in the room either watching films or playing on the laptop.
Mine's a little bit different because Callum does live independently, so I just go down to assess and to just make sure that he's done what he's supposed to do. After 7 months of living on his own, it's still hard for Callum to adjust for me not being there. So he tends not to clean up and do things that he's supposed to be doing, but he still has his little traits when he was younger, like his routine when he gets up, he has to play on the Xbox, he has to watch a certain TV programme. He's very repetitive with his speech, but it's better than what it was, and I think we're going to get there. It's a long struggle, but we will get there.
I know some people are concerned when children get a diagnosis that it's going to affect them in later life, because obviously if you put down autism or anything on a CV, it shows them that there's going to be some problems. But me personally, I think it's a good thing because they get the support that they need while they're in school, and hopefully they will find a job that can adapt to them and enable them to lead a better life as an adult with the right support.
Callum's been in a few relationships. He does find things hard because he doesn't know how to deal with emotions, and because he's different, and when he texts his girlfriend and she doesn't reply straight back, he gets very anxious and very upset, and then he'll call me, why isn't she text back? You know, we know that there might be a million reasons why she's not text back. She could be in the shower, she could still be asleep, she's not heard a phone, but Callum doesn't understand that. But now that he's let his current girlfriend know that he's got autism, I think that Callum will be understood more in a relationship, and they would, or they do, accept some of Callum's behaviour.
Well, Tyler's in special school, so she'll stay there till she's 19. So I ain't got to worry about that yet. But we don't know what. I always say until Tyler talks, we won't know what she's capable of, because you can see she's switched on.
Yeah,
She just can't get out what she needs to. I mean, she can't read and write. She knows numbers to 20, and she knows the phonics of her ABC. She can't do them all, but she knows the majority of them. But she couldn't tell you that there's one cup sat there, and there's 2 chairs. There's no concept of how many's there. It's just that she knows that a number 2 is a number 2. Like, she knows that I'm mum, but she don't realise that that's because she come from my body.
Yeah.
She just it's just a name for her. I'm mum. Same as Caitlin. I mean, I was asked once if she knew her place in the family, and I said she knows I'm mum and she knows Trev's dad.
Yeah.
She knows Caitlin is sister Caitlin, but she don't know that that's because we're blood related. She doesn't understand things like that. And when she's older, we don't know what's going to be out there. We know she won't always live with us, and we've already made that decision. She won't always stay with us because she's too unpredictable, too volatile. And she makes Caitlin's life hell. She can make everybody's life hell when she's on one. So to think that she might have a job one day, I can't even think about it. If I see it as if she can feed herself and can handle money, that would, and get from A to B on the bus, that would be enough for me.
Well, having a brother with autism, when I first found out, I was kind of heartbroken because I've always wanted a brother to look after me and be friends with me. And it is hard to sometimes, but you've got to accept what they are, and you've got to adapt to it, and you have to be his mentor, kind of.
It's hard because of her problems, and so I come here to help out, but sometimes it's hard because she's hard work and sometimes we don't know what to do with her, so we get frustrated and a bit upset and stuff. And at home I get dead loud with her because she's frustrating.
It's pretty hard because when you think about it, you really feel sorry for him because it's like somebody putting a hand over your mouth and not letting you say what you really want. And then they try to express it by attacking things and getting angry. And I mean, if you had a hand over your mouth, you'd probably turn around and try and hit the person that's doing it. So if you think about it, it's probably really frustrating for him.
Well, fears for the future for a start. As he gets older, we're not sure what's going to happen. He has the communication, but what's going to happen when he has to go to work? Will he be able to go to work?
If they can live independently, or finding the right place for him to go with the right support.
Yeah.
And,
Are we going to be around long enough to help them?
can we let him go? Because it's hard to let him go into it. I've already said we're moving into a bungalow and we're having a granny annex on the side for the boys to live so I can keep an eye on them. But you can't, you've got to...
They've got to have the independence as well. But there's also what's out there. Are they going to be discriminated against? And
the bullying from if you find the right place but they turn out to be bullied and things like that. And
but hopefully we will find somewhere good for them. There will be the right support. And there's going to be family members around that can keep their eye on them, the siblings. And
it's hard because they haven't got a clue about money or taking care of themselves or cooking or anything like that, have they? They've got no sense of danger, and it's finding the right support for them and the right place for them to go to get that support. It's scary. I mean, mine's 15 and 13, and it's like, oh God, he's 15, what's going to happen when he's 18 and 20, and what's out there for him? Because nobody helps you, you have to find it out yourself.
The biggest thing about autism is getting into your child's head and their way of thinking. But if I could give anybody any advice now, I would say don't wait too long to get support from other parents. It's really important, and they do help you along that path.
Because it helps you to help you. It helps you to help yourself, and to help while you're helping yourself, you're helping your child.
Develop a thick skin.
If you suspect your child has got autism, then go and see a paediatrician and get a diagnosis. Don't sit there thinking what ifs and what nots. Go out and seek the help that you need.
Try and get involved in a support group, because they help you realise that things aren't always as bad as it seems, and there are good times. And to remember that they are your children and they are relying on you to do the best you can for them. And believe me, it is worthwhile when they look at you and say, I love you.
Make your voice heard and look for the support groups that are out there.
Having a child that's diagnosed with autism doesn't mean it's the end of their story. It just means it's the beginning of a new chapter.